All right, I see my clicker at 50. I got you. Here we go.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, folks, welcome back to your Frederick Real Estate Update. I am Darren Ahern with RE/MAX Results, bringing you over 20 years experience in the Maryland and Southern PA region. And I also have with me the man, the myth, the legend, the man with all the money over in Presidential Bank Mortgage, who doesn't have any kids. He has to put into school down there at Gonzaga, Mr.
Terry Kernan.
You still are tied into Gonzaga stuff pretty good, right?
I am, yeah.
The Purple Haze.
The Purple Eagles.
Purple Eagle, not, I said, Purple Haze, but Purple Eagles, go.
Our son Terry's the assistant athletic director down there.
That's awesome.
And, it's just a great place, and he loves it. And he's been there for 12 years. Went there right after college and started coaching and came back teaching, and now he's the assistant athletic director. And
it's awesome.
It's a great spot. So yes.
Yeah, you still go to the games. I remember we went. What was it? We went to the basketball game when they played. Was it St. John's or whatever? That was the big rival game or something. It was wild. Yeah, I need to know the schedule.
American University. It was a championship game.
That was awesome.
And basketball, but you also came to the St. John's.
Yeah, we went to the football game. Yes, both basketball and football. So now that it's football season and basketball season coming up, let me know when we're going to go to a game. How's that?
That sounds great.
And I will see your son be out there telling everybody how to get things done out there on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. That's good stuff. Shout out to him, right? Good stuff. All right, let's get right back into it. No numbers today. Everybody wants to know about this big controversial thing right now, Terry, that we have going on, and that is this. What is it? It's about the rental market. All right, first and foremost, I didn't mention it last week. We mentioned it before, but coming up in January, Terry, really important. If you own a rental property in Frederick city limits,
Okay.
it is, coming up January 1st. By then, it is mandatory that you have to go on the county website or the office and you must register your property. Everybody's like, register for what? Register for the government to know that you own it, that you're going to abide by the new terms and rules and code enforcement stuff and all the fun stuff that deals mostly, which is good, safety concerns, issues, smoke detectors are updated and newer and all that, and you got handrails and you got this and that and blah, blah, blah. So already in place, as we know, if a property is built before 1978, you must you have to get the lead-based or lead-based test-free, safe testing done every single time you change renters. You have to do that, which most people know. If not, you get a violation. But the big thing is this. $250 a year is $250 which you have to pay to register your property. And then what they're saying is after January 1st, when this kicks in, okay, at any given moment, all the properties that are rentable that are registered, and if you don't register, big fines coming out. But it's random. It's random checks, okay? In the first 2 years, in 2024 and 2025, that at any given moment, you could have a little knocky on your door and a visitation if you have tenants in there or not or whatever. And they can come in, code official, code enforcement peoples and all them. They can come and check out your property. I heard 25% of all properties will definitely be visited randomly within the first 2 years. And so you don't want to take that gamble. I don't know what the fines and rules and regulations are on that. I don't own a property in the downtown proper area, but it's really important that you basically get yourself up to date. And if you know of anybody that owns it, it doesn't matter if you're doing Airbnb or any kind of rental at all. This is the stuff. These are the rules. And a lot of the things that got put into effect basically came out of Rockville, out of Montgomery County, to be able to use them as a guideline and all that stuff like that. So anyways, that's how it works. Government more involvement, and that's what we've been talking about, Terry, is we've been talking about rent controls. What are the pros and the cons of this whole idea? We talked about the pros, capping affordability for people that, they're getting tired of paying 7, 8, 10, 12% rent increases every year, or a new lease that's renewed in their agreement and all that. I can't even remember the last time we've seen rents come down. I don't know. It just doesn't really happen. I mean, it's maybe been 15 years, maybe during the Great Recession. But even at that point, people say, well, that makes sense. No, it doesn't. Because we had the highest amount of foreclosure short sales we had ever done in our lives, which was causing people to go rent, which means rental demand went through the roof during 09, 10, and 11. So I don't remember seeing them come down. The only time rents come down is when the inventory of rentals exceeds the demand for rental. And then the rental property sits on the market for 30, 60 days and they don't have a rental application and a good qualified renter. And then all of a sudden the landlord does what? They lower the rent $100, $150, $200 a month until they get a renter. We haven't seen that. I don't remember seeing that. I don't know if I've seen that in my 20 years. I don't think I can ever recall lowering rent, like prices of homes, in 20 years of doing 700 homes, selling them or renting as well. I don't know. I've probably done 50 rentals. I don't know. I don't recall ever bringing one down.
No, and I think what a lot of landlords do, Darren, having been a landlord at one point years ago, was you give that incentive. Because you don't ever want to lower your price, but you can give an incentive like first month free. Okay?
Ah, there you go.
So then you're not lowering your rental fee, but what you're doing is you're giving them 1 month's free. So technically you're lowering it, but in their mind they're getting a good deal. In your mind, you're not having to lower and set a lower standard for the next time you rent it. If it's $1,500, instead of lowering it to $1,400, you can just give them the first month free, which is $1,500. But going into the next contract, you're still at $1,500.
You're still there, yeah.
So yeah, rents really don't come down, and I don't ever see them coming down in the foreseeable future, because what you just talked about is the demand is always going to be higher than the supply. And why is that? Is we're not getting enough
rentals.
We're not getting enough multi-family housing on the market. We're not getting enough single-family housing. We're not getting enough condos. We have an extreme shortage, and I talk about this every year when I go to the builder convention, that the number one thing is demand's at 1.2 million a year, but we can only build 800,000 to 900,000 because of the trades aren't staffed well enough to get there. So that shortage will continue, and as long as there's a shortage, rents will continue to go up. I don't ever recall seeing rents go down either. You know, the only time that they really stabilized, in my opinion, was when the rates were down at 3% 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because then the competition for the rental was not the guy renting next door, but it was the guy selling next door, because you could actually rent a home for about the same amount of money that you could pay a mortgage. And last week or 2 weeks ago, I talked about the advantages of buying a home with the tax advantages, and basically how much it figures into a tax advantage by buying a home. So that was the biggest competition. So for a long time, I didn't see rents go up too high, but right now that competition's gone because rates are at 7%. So
big time. That's a good point. So there you go. Also, the other pro was the supply of properties would increase, because this would cause less people to desire to own investment properties. So if the government stepped in and said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Owner Landlorder, guess what? We're going to tell you what you can charge and what you can't charge. That would do it. That would really cause, for the favor for the tenants, of course. And then we'd have more on the market, which means there's more to pick from. And then that competition goes up, which means landlords have to maybe spend a little bit more money fixing things up, new carpet, new paint, new appliances, and fixing it up, making it better in that way as well, rather than renting it without doing some of these things and a myriad of things like that. So it makes sense. So those would be all in favor of the tenant. But what are the cons? What are the cons of having rent controls where the government steps in and dictates laws, good or bad or indifferent, to the landlord owners and what they must follow, which means really it almost feels like now, as Tucker Carlson would say, almost feels like the government owns the property maybe at this point, and you don't. How's that sound? All right, the government has more control over the laws, slippery slope to force owners to abide by laws that may negatively affect ownership and the freedom of what you can and can't do with the property. That would be the biggest con to it. So
you want me to pitch in on this?
Come on, T. I want to hear what you got on that one.
Well, I think it would be the wrong move to do, and the reason I'm saying that is the government took the side, and I'm not saying it was wrong what they did. I thought it was a great move, but I think that they damaged the relationship between landlords and tenants during COVID, when they basically said to the landlords, you cannot evict anybody.
Yeah.
And they came back and said to the tenants, you don't have to pay the landlord until further notice. And that caused a tremendous amount of hardship on the landlords. I mean, I had several landlords calling saying, hey, can I refinance?
Yeah.
And we're like, as long as you qualify without a mortgage payment, like being able to carry the mortgage payment without the rental income.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can, because for that period of time, a lot of these landlords in it, I don't know what that percentage was, but I got to believe it was over 50% maybe. But that would be an interesting thing to see what amount of landlords did not receive rent, during COVID. And they couldn't do anything about it, and there was no way to recover from it. And there were a lot of people that it caused a tremendous amount of hardship. So to come back now, 2 years later, after such a damaging move,
Yep.
and saying, hey, you've got to restrict what you do, I think that's going to hurt the investors even more. And I don't think that they'll be selling or getting out of the business because they're not making money. But I think just the trend of where it's going and pure frustration, we'll see less people wanting to become an investor. And it's very important that we do have investors, that we do have renters.
Oh, yeah.
That we do have landlords out there, because there's a lot of people that can't get into a home.
Yep.
Or they don't believe that they can get into a home.
Exactly. The big question that came to my mind when you talked about that was, did you have anybody, or did the landlords have the opportunity to be able to call the mortgage lender, holder, servicer and say, hey, does this mean I don't have to pay my mortgage? If the tenant don't have to pay theirs, I don't have to pay mine. Can we just delay this thing? Did that happen?
There was a lot of that talk.
But it never happened, did it?
Correct.
What about forbearance? Now, as we know, there were a lot of people that could take advantage during COVID of putting their mortgage payments in deferment, if you will, kind of like loans, student loans and things, that it could be back-ended. It could be put on the back end. And, I haven't heard a lot of chatter about that either, and it's been a long time. But, Terry, wasn't that an option for owners of investment properties as well? Not just primary?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that was the case. So there were a lot of situations where doing forbearance, and I've got to check on that, because there's so much still COVID fog. I mean, so much going on that during that time where, and I'm not speaking for just myself, but where so many things were happening at that moment in time that you look back and you say, was that real or was that a dream?
Yeah,
was that a nightmare, or was that real?
Twilight Zone.
So that's a very good question that I would like to find out for myself. I don't know what that answer is, but I'm going to find out. But I believe that the people, if you had a second home or investment, you could go into forbearance, but I'm not sure about that. I'm going to have to research that one.
Yeah, research it, because you know what? We all forgot about forbearance. I haven't heard about that. I haven't been to a settlement yet where the title attorney says, "Ho, Merry Christmas. Wait a minute. On the Alta statement, we've got some forbearance money in the background that still needs to pay off." Kind of like a second, we call it a junior lien, a second holder, or a mechanic's lien or something like that doesn't come up until it's been something that's been recorded against the property and it's on the deed and stuff like, or on the title, and it's something that's negatively affecting it as far as the value that needs to be paid out or something. And that could be back taxes. There's a whole bunch of those things like that. And that is what separates us real estate agents, because it's always good to know, like when I sell properties, I always want our title attorneys and I want to know how clean we're dealing with here, right? And all that. And I know you guys as lenders, you want to know that too, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So it makes sense that we know, Terry, that it's a likely negative affecting values. If you start messing up with the free market, you start messing with the ebb and flows, the highs and the lows and all that, it's not going to end well. It's not going to be a good thing. And it's not good that's a con, that having the government control landlords, and it does, and it will lower the rents. And here begs the next problem. Something that, don't know how many people have thought about, but whenever you put controls on values and what you can and can't charge, this can cause less investment ownership due to the fact that investors now have the possibility of having properties where they're no longer able to pay off their mortgage payments. And somebody says, well, how's that work? Well, if they refinanced the property because they weren't getting paid during COVID, and they had to refinance it to be able to keep it and to pay the mortgage payment because they couldn't put it in forbearance or not have the option to pay it for a while and defer it completely altogether, like we saw with student loans, what happens is this. Now you got a mortgage that they owe. Let's say the average investor owes $1,600 a month mortgage payment on the property, but they were getting $1,800, $1,900. They had a little cash flow. They could maintain it and keep it, and it's going. And then all of a sudden the government comes in and says, "Whoa, you can't charge more than $1,500 for that." Terry, the first thing is the owner of the property is going to go, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! We owe $1,600 a month mortgage payment. You're now telling us we can only charge $1,500 a month rent. That means out of my pocket, I got to pay $100 a month just to keep the property." Government says, "We don't really care. We're in charge here. There's a new sheriff in town. You can't charge more than $1,500. Do you think that's going to be a problem for the owner of the property?
Well, yes, of course it will be. But what we're also looking at is one of the reasons that rents are going up is any new investor getting into the market. So we're not seeing a lot of investment properties. Why? Investment property financing is very hard to get.
Yes.
Okay. Why is it hard to get? Because Fannie and Freddie don't want investment properties in people's portfolios, and they don't want second homes in people's portfolios.
There you go.
So the rates to go Fannie or Freddie on investment properties is like over 8% right now.
You're going to pay for it. That's con.
So you're going to pay for it. But let's talk about an 8% mortgage versus an investor that, so let's say I get upset and I say, you know what, I'm going to get out of this investment business. I'm going to sell my investment properties. I'm going to move on. And it's a multi-unit property, and let's say it's in downtown Frederick or downtown Hagerstown or wherever it is. And I'm going to sell this multi-unit, and it's a 3-unit, and it's rented, and I've got good cash flow. Well, it doesn't mean that the guy buying it's going to have good cash flow, right?
That's it right there.
Because I'm getting out, but I have a 3.5% investment loan.
Boom.
And now I got to go up to 8%. So the next guy, so that's going to do what? It's going to decrease the value of my property, because people look at, when buying an investment property, how close am I to breaking even? Am I making money or am I losing money? How much am I losing? So that 8% that they now got to spend to do an investment property changes the whole ball game.
Yep.
So you can't really say, okay, well, you can only charge $1,500. Well, I'm going to lose $800 a month. Why would I be in this ball game?
There you go.
So
good one there.
A roundabout way, but that's
it. That's perfect. So these are the cons. The other one is this. It could cause many more foreclosures in the market with negative, which always pretty much negatives impact the community in many capacities. All values are negatively impacted whenever you have foreclosure things. So we don't want investment properties going into foreclosure because they're maxed out and they can't afford it no more. And the other con is it puts people potentially out on the streets. Because if it goes into foreclosure, what's going to happen with the tenants? What rights do they have? Getting cash for keys. Who's going to pay for that? Now the government comes in. But if the government comes in and says, hey, we're going to take care of this. So, and it also, as the con, is it also takes away from private individual type ownership in properties and investing. And now it opens up the floodgates for possibility of big corporations and companies to come in and scoop up all these investment properties. And they're not even in that kind of a business. They're just scooping up real estate. And somebody says, does that happen? Yeah, go Google BlackRock and see how much property they bought up during COVID. It'll blow your mind, okay? Nothing against BlackRock. I don't care what they do, and other companies and corporations. Anybody can do anything they want as long as it falls and it's not illegal, but it does take away from individual private ownership if you get corporations and companies and different things doing this and that. So, I don't know, good thing, bad thing, a different thing, who knows? But you got to think about this kind of stuff that's really important, of all the different levels of cons that could potentially dictate and affect a property negative. So there you go. Terry, life on the streets. Let's get into the mortgage world. What's happening?
So we just talked about rents, right?
We did.
And so what I want to talk a little bit about is, and I've said it on the show a million times, well, not a million, but at least 100 times. Don't always believe what you think.
Yeah, right? I'm starting to live that way now.
So many people believe that they can't get into a house and that they have to rent because, number one, I don't have the money to do it, okay? So let's talk a little bit about how you can become a renter, a non-renter, and be a homeowner. So last week I talked about the difference or 2 weeks ago I talked about the difference between buying a home and selling a home, and the numbers that I used was $300,000. The equivalent in cash flow out of your pocket, the money that you owe Uncle Sam. And if you didn't listen to that show, I got calls on it. It was a great informational.
Yeah, we rocked it.
It was a great informational. but I talked about the tax advantage to buying a home now rather than renting, okay?
Yep.
So a $2,200 rent is the equivalent in today's market of about a $2,800 mortgage payment.
You heard it from the man.
So it's about a $600 difference. So people say, well, I want to rent. So we're going to talk about a couple of things. Let's talk about grants that are available. City of Frederick, Frederick County, 10 to 12,000 depending on your income, HAP, okay? That's going to be a program that you're going to have to pay it back, but we're going to give it to you up front. You can piggyback it with the city, or you can piggyback it with the Atlanta FHLB grant that we have. The city will give up to $10,000. These are all income dependent programs, okay? So there's a lot of money out there. Federal Home Loan Bank that we have through Presidential, we do a ton. $15,000 for a
15.
teacher, veteran, community partner, a police officer. It's not somebody that is a teacher at a college. We've done it for somebody that was in the maintenance department at Montgomery College. Got him $12,000 several years back. So there's a lot of grant money out there. Utilize it. Now the Atlanta grant is temporarily. We're getting a little here, but they're going to replenish it hopefully soon. But it's a great program. State of Maryland, bottom line, they want you to be a homeowner. So they have a lot of great programs. Let's talk about going with the state of Maryland. Why would I go with the state of Maryland if I don't need money, right?
Yeah, why would you do that?
If I don't need down payment assistance, why would I go with the state of Maryland? The state of Maryland basically takes a look at the interest rates that we charge, that we have out on the streets, and they undercut everybody out on the streets. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you don't need down payment assistance, in today's market, you can get 6.625%.
Nice.
Okay? Seems like a high rate, but in today's market of 7 1/8, that's an extremely low rate.
Yeah.
7 1/4.
That's like a built-in buy-down. How's
Yes,
that?
it is a built-in buy-down for good.
It built-in buy-down permanently, too. You're not
So
going to
if
hear
you
this
don't
other
need that
places.
down payment assistance,
It's good.
then that's a great rate. Do I utilize that? Yes. It's a very good program to utilize. First-time home buyers. If you need $6,000, your rate's going to be 7.375. You can get 3%. That's going to be 3% of the sales price. That's going to be a rate of 7.375%. 4% down payment assistance. 4%. All this money you have to pay back. 7.5%. So there's about 0.5% difference from what today's market is for what the rates are going to be. 5% down payment assistance.
Wow.
That's going to almost get you home, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So in the state
Yeah,
of
because if
Maryland-
you're not getting closing costs or nothing in all these multiple offer situations still, which you're not going to, then the bottom line is getting that 5% from the CDA monies pays all your closing costs, because 9 out of 10 times, Terry, when I do the calculations for buyers, it's about 4.5% of the purchase price.
Yes.
So there you go. You're coming in with that, no money, out of pocket, bingo, got the program to do it.
So basically you're looking at great down payment assistance. So I tell people 3% down payment on a conventional loan plus 4.5% for closing costs. So when you're looking at a house, figure on 8% to get you in totally, okay?
Yep.
If you can do that. Now, we talked about forbearance earlier in the program, about mortgages. What has been the number one loan in forbearance since COVID? Student loans.
Oh, what do we have coming?
We have people that are going to have to start paying their student loans back, okay? They haven't paid for 3 years. So what does that mean? State of Maryland has what's called the Smart Buy. We will pay up to $40,000 off worth of your student loans. This is something that is forgivable at 20% per year. That number,
Wow.
just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that number was $50,000. But I think the state of Maryland said we can get more people to get into the program, pay off $40,000 worth of your student loan debt, because people are starting to call like crazy.
Yeah.
I'm getting about 2 calls a day for people that want to do the Smart Buy program because they know that the forbearance is ending. A year ago, when I talked to somebody about that, they'd say, "Oh, my student loans are going to be forgiven." I said, "Okay, let's let me know how that works out.
Yeah, right.
If that is not the case, student loans are going to have to get paid back. So there's so much money out there. You just got to work with somebody like myself that knows the money, knows the tricks of the trade, knows what to do, and knows how to make it happen.
That's one of the first questions I ask buyers now is not only are you a Maryland first-time home buyer, and not only how much cash do you have and the whole 9 yards and everything like that, but do you have student loans, Your Honor? That's a great question because of what Terry's talking about right here. Up to $40,000 can be wiped out and forgiven over time, and there you go. We got 2 minutes. What else?
What else? I think the bottom line is that when you're seeing the escalating rents, when you're seeing the tax advantages that buying a home can do, that it helps to actually investigate. Don't believe what you're hearing all the time. Rates are really high. It's unbelievable. I believe that rates can only come down.
Yeah.
So this 7%, or if you go with a down payment assistance, 7 3/8, these payments that you're looking at, I believe are temporary. Number one question that people ask me, can you refinance a Maryland mortgage program loan? The answer is yes.
Wow.
You can refinance it. So when the rates come down, that rate also comes down. Number two question is people say, why do they charge me a higher rate? Because you are getting something very, very, very tangible there.
Yeah, very
now,
good sweetheart deal.
All that down payment assistance that I talked about, you have to pay back. If you sell that house in 30 years, you're paying the state of Maryland back in 30 years. If you sell it in 3 years, you're paying it back. That $40,000 that we wipe off student loans, you're not paying that back unless you move out of that house or sell that house in the next 5 years. Okay, that's forgiven 20% a year. That's
a lot of money.
Huge program.
Yeah, that's huge.
So the money's out there.
Sure is.
The ability's out there. You know, it's tough right now, but it's always worth looking at.
Yeah, and this stuff, as rates come down, who knows, at any given moment, this stuff can go away. And that's the thing people need to realize. So Terry and I are always here for you. We're here. Call Terry up, get a tune-up on your loan stuff and all that. Give me a call. I'm going to educate you on a customized plan on how to sell your home or get you into one that I promise you is going to be amazing with my 20 years experience. So thanks so much for tuning in. Tell your family and friends. Ring the bell, click it, ding it, send it out, do whatever you want. That is all good with it. We appreciate you tuning into your Frederick Real Estate Update. We'll see you each and every Saturday right here on WFMD. Thanks so much. Take care.